It's time to accelerate. Hi, I'm your host, Andy Paul. Join me as I host conversations with the leading experts in sales, marketing, sales automation, sales process, leadership, management, training, coaching, any resource that I believe to help you accelerate the growth of your sales, your business, and most importantly, you. Hello, and welcome to Accelerate. I am looking forward to talking with my guest today. Joining me all the way from London, Gerald Vanderpuye. Gerald is founder and CEO of BuyerDeck. It's a UK-based company, well, at least for now, UK-based sales enablement and collaboration platform. Gerald, welcome to Accelerate.
Thank you, Andy.
Yeah, I wasn't trying to pressure you about moving the company, but I had heard a rumor that maybe you were relocating.
Yeah, that's a good rumor. So
So take a minute before we get into that part of the story. Take a minute, introduce yourself, and tell us a little about yourself. Maybe how you got your start in sales.
Sure.
And then you can tell us when you're moving over here.
Cool. Yeah. So, firstly, ignore my slightly American twang. I think my heart is in San Francisco, San Diego, somewhere in Austin, maybe. But my body is definitely still in London. Not to say I don't love London, but I'm definitely destined to move there. My favorite people are Americans. Yes, I said it, and that's why I have that accent. But indeed, yes.
Your accent doesn't really sound very American. Just FYI, it does sound quite British still.
Right. I hope it does, because I kind of like my British accent and I want to sound British, because whenever I'm in the US, everybody loves it. But when I'm in the UK, everyone thinks I'm American. So it's really screwed up right now. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. No. Okay. Yeah. Rest assured, you still sound British.
Thank you. I will take that. But yes, my name is Gerald, and I'm CEO and co-founder of BuyerDeck. My background is very much sales. I've spent some time with Rackspace, which is the greatest company I've worked for. Prior to that, I've been with Sun Microsystems, which is now with Oracle, and a few other companies. But yeah, my passion is sales, and I'm now changing the way that companies buy and sell.
All right. Well, we're going to jump into that. But let's talk about your plans to relocate the company. I know I keep coming back to that, but I'm always trying to recruit entrepreneurs to come here.
Right. Yeah, I think so. The truth is, the space that we're in, I think the early adopters is naturally in the US. 70% of our customers and users are in the US. A lot of my advisors and investors are in the US. We have, some of the San Antonio government trying to entice us to move there, and we have, we know we have to do that, but it's just about timing and doing it at the right time. So really, we have a goal as a company. We might get there in the next sort of 6 months, and we have a very tough choice to make between Austin, San Antonio, San Francisco, and maybe San Diego.
Yeah, well, you know which one I would vote for. So, but that's for people who don't know. I mean, I split my time between San Diego and New York. So yeah, San Diego would certainly be one of the choices. I mean, Austin, great place, dynamic environment, great barbecue. Very close to San Antonio. So, a lot of the same influences in terms of quality of life and so on. San Francisco, fabulous place. Maybe the most expensive of those, but maybe not so expensive compared to London.
Right. It's a tough choice. And I have two very important reasons to consider San Diego. So there you go. It's let's put it this way. It's going to be between Texas and California.
I think we got that point. Okay. All right. So let's dive into BuyerDeck then, because you are a new company. You are starting to sell the product. So what does BuyerDeck do? What was the impetus for starting the company? What was the problem you're trying to solve?
Right. So as I said, I think I spent about 2.5 years ago, I was working for Rackspace, and I worked, and I remember working as an enterprise sales rep, selling to large companies, and just being really passionate about how buyers buy from us and sales enablement. I remember creating lots of tools that was used by the entire sales floor just to help people with finding the right content and just having the right playbooks, and people used to use the tools that I created. They were just basic tools, but people loved that. And I remember just most of my buyers loving working with me, and I was doing pretty well. I was in the top 1 percentile, but I always found that as a company, Rackspace delivered a really remarkable product. And that was the majority of the reason we won. A lot of times was because of the product. However, whenever we lost and whenever it was really competitive, I found that it was usually because the sales experience and the buying experience wasn't remarkable. We were probably average, in the way that we delivered, we sold. There was a specific example, actually.
Well, just in the deals you lost, you thought on average you were just average.
Yeah, right. I think as a company we should have won a lot more than we did, and the ones that we lost, it was mostly the feedback we got was mostly to do with the way that we were selling and the experience that we were delivering to the stakeholders. And it's because it was complex sales. And I began to kind of think about this a lot more. And there's a particular, go on.
Well, complex sales meaning that given sort of the length and the complexity of the sale, that it was hard to maintain a consistency across the breadth of the sales process or the buying process?
Right. And so I define complex sales as really three factors. One, the deal size is usually over 10K in average deal size. There are multiple stakeholders, which is really important. And then you've got a long sales cycle. So those three factors makes the deal complex for both selling and for buying.
Okay.
Yeah, and at Rackspace, these were the typical kind of deals that we were working on. In fact, I was working on one of the largest deals at Rackspace, and I had forecasted the deal to happen, Andy, and my CEO at the time says, Gerald, it's 3 weeks in, we haven't heard anything from the buyer. Can you give us an executive overview of what's going on? So I summarized exactly what's going on, who we're selling to, why they're buying from us, who's involved, the deal size, all the details of the deal, and I emailed it to the internal stakeholders. Of course, there's the VP of sales, there's the CEO, there's the pre-sales guys, there's legal, there's all sorts of different guys that are helping me with the deal. And I made a mistake and I copied in the buyer on what was supposed to be an internal email. And my VP of sales, who was in San Antonio at the time, emails me and says, Gerald, you idiot, were you supposed to copy in the buyer on this email? It turns out the buyer comes back to us and says, Gerald, thanks for this. He thinks it's intentional, by the way.
Right.
And he says, thanks for this. You know what? This is exactly what I needed to sell internally to my stakeholders about why we're considering you. So anyway, cut a long story short, this unintentional transparency leads to us winning one of the largest deal, in fact, the largest deal in the UK at the time. And the bit of the story that people always forget, because the CEO asked me, hey, why did we win this deal? What did we do differently? The bit they forget is when the buyer read the email, he said, Gerald, a lot of these assumptions you've made are actually not right. It's not quite right. And it just highlighted how bad of an experience the buyer, or how below, it was average, right? They were having. And just having all this information allowed us to really deliver a much better experience. And that led us to us winning the deal.
So what were the expectations or the assumptions you had that were wrong?
Sure. So some of it was about why they were buying. Some of it was about the internal sort of selling and who needed to be bought in and why and what they cared about. So when you're doing complex sales, there's multiple stakeholders and everybody cares about different things. So how the primary buyer goes about selling it, delivering the value proposition internally is unique to the different stakeholders. And of course, the timing is when the deal is going to happen is a key assumption that typically we get wrong, that I got wrong. And also some of it was about the solution. So there was a lot of things that I had kind of assumed because they just agreed that yes, it should be the case, but it wasn't a consensus, from all the stakeholders.
So how did you get that changed around?
Right. So, just him seeing that alone was enough, right? It just allowed us to have this conversation around, well, no, Gerald, this is what it is. And we were able to get to a point where we were in agreement, or at least the different stakeholders could could have input in it and get us to a point where all the dots were in line, as they say. And I think that really helped us, deliver a better experience for them and specifically for the primary contact.
And so this inadvertent transparency, how did that then help you sort of have this epiphany about, geez, here's a need in the market that we can fill?
Right. So I'm then invited to a boardroom to discuss how, such a hero, Gerald, you've just won the largest deal that we can win. I'm thinking, well, phew, I would have lost that deal. But they've asked me to present this and sort of explain what we've done right and what we can learn and the lessons learned. And actually, I turned this around and I said, well, actually, this is a great learning for me, because I realized that even though we had a remarkable product, the buying experience we were delivering it wasn't anywhere close to being a great experience for the buyer. And the question that we should be asking within the sales organization is, are we delivering a remarkable buying experience to the people that are buying from us, the same way that our product is remarkable, right? And is that experience allowing us to differentiate ourselves from the competition? Because during that period, that's really all we have, is this differentiation in the way that we're selling, how responsive we are, how we're validating our assumptions, how we're listening, and how we are, how that entire experience really is critical. So I was tasked with really putting this into practice and thinking about, how do we deliver a remarkable experience for every buyer that comes through the door? And we tried to do this. We built some systems, we built some rules and some processes around setting the bar at remarkability. And that was really difficult to do. So I said, hey, I need a budget. I need to build some software around this. I didn't get the budget. I got frustrated. So I said, hey, I'm going to leave and I'm going to build this. And today we've built a buy-in portal that brings all those stakeholders that I've talked about into one single location to communicate, collaborate transparently around the key insights and key points of the deal during that entire sales and buying experience. And now Rackspace is a customer as well as some larger names. So yeah, I hope that paints a clearer picture.
Okay, well, we're going to dive into sort of this portal, because several sort of key buzzwords in there. I mean, transparency is one, obviously, collaboration, portal. So why don't we start with maybe, let's say, the portal, and tell people sort of what it does, what you're intending that it does, how maybe some customers are using it now. And then I want to get into this whole aspect of transparency and so on, because to me, transparency is not really a feature of a product, it's really a behavior.
Right. And you're absolutely right. So I'll start with the portal. So think of it this way. Every time one of our customers, so a sales rep, has an opportunity, they rather than just thinking of it as an opportunity, they think of the opportunity as a project between his internal stakeholders that are helping him deliver this experience to the buyer and the buyer's stakeholders. And they create a portal that brings in...
Talking about a sales opportunity, right? Go ahead.
Absolutely.
Just clarify, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So the sales opportunity is converted into a project between the buying team and the selling team. And we help them bring all those stakeholders that are involved in one single location. We then house all the different aspects of the deal and all the different pieces of content and questions and answers in one single location for all stakeholders to have access to. So this portal becomes the single place where proposals are shared, marketing materials shared, if there are questions that needs to be asked, if there is instant communication that needs to happen. Everything is housed in this single location, making the buying experience for the buyer completely differentiated, but also really easy for them to ask any of the salespeople or there's a question whenever they want to.
So it's saying, okay, we're instead of communicating via sharing via email or social, right, whatever, we're going to do this all through this portal that everybody has access to. Right. And so how do you get the buyer, I guess, to agree to use the portal as a tool that they'll use for their buying process, as the way to share and receive information?
Right, really good question. So I think to go back to email, which is really what we're replacing here for this particular use case, is email is great for one-on-one communication. When you have 3, 4, 5 stakeholders on your side, and you have 5+ stakeholders on the buyer side, it really isn't the best tool for collaborating. And I think we've lived with email for a long time now, and there's a lot of companies that are disrupting it for specific use cases. And we think for buying and selling, we can do a much better job than just using email to do this. But you're right. The question is, how do you get the buyer to move out of the tool that they're used to into a new tool? Well, what we do is we present the tool in a way to the buyer that doesn't require them to sign up, doesn't require them to. It really is a 2-click process from their email. They click on a link and it opens the portal. From that moment, we make sure that it's secure to them, their laptop, their IP address. Nobody else can access it, and it means that for them it's completely seamless, and they can go back to it at any point.
But they still have to use it.
Well, right. They can still use email.
So that's the only thing I'm getting is yeah. So let's say you send an email to a customer.
Right.
Does it automatically get copied into the portal then?
Right. So if you send an email to a customer, of course, it's not copied into the portal. We assume that because you're sending an email, it's a private email, right? But if you want to have an instant communication with a customer, you've got to use BuyerDeck. And for the buyer, the reason they would use our tool is because, hey, all the content's there and all the people are there instantly. Not an email that requires, that might mean you're waiting maybe hours before you get a response. They can just click the link and they can talk to the salesperson or whoever's involved instantly.
So is that set up with sort of methodology that it's like a workspace, so that they know if you're online, the buyer comes online, they have a question, they can tell whether you're available?
Right, and that's the beauty of it. So, I mean, you of all people should, I'm sure, agrees with us on the importance of responsiveness from the salesperson. And that's one of the major fundamentals around delivering a great buying experience, which is, if the buyer comes online, you should know that, hey, this buyer is thinking about you right now. They probably have a question. They probably they want to they're looking to educate themselves or to ask you a question. So for a rep, we notify them instantly, and it means they're ready to respond and beat the competition.
Okay. So let's sort of walk through. So from a salesperson's perspective, a use case, because there are these collaborative tools, a set of collaborative tools that are emerging in the sales space, some bleeding over from sort of workspace collaboration, others more purpose-built like your own. How is a salesperson using them, and what are you finding in terms of adoption within your clients?
Right. Yeah. So we have within our client base, we probably have about 60% of salespeople within the organizations that we use it religiously. Now, the other 40%, we know that, hey, they will over a year, it would take them some time to kind of come on board and use it. But there are just individuals that are stuck in their ways, and I think we know that that's going to change with time. But we know that the reps that use it drive a huge amount of engagement on their opportunities. They have a higher close rate, and they can see directly which buyers are truly engaged. And we know that out of the buyers that they engage with, around 28% of those buyers are actually completely disengaged, probably not a good fit, or are not ready to buy from them. And those sales reps that are using our tool can focus their time on truly buyers that are qualified.
Yeah, I mean, certainly it does become a level of qualification, right? If you are setting up a portal, as you said, it's instant, 2 clicks, no sign in required. You tell the customer, hey, this is how we want to communicate with you. We think, here are the value of doing that. And then they don't engage, and you have those analytics, I presume, that tell you, hey, they've come to the site X number of times, or they open these documents, or so on and so forth.
Right.
Then, and you can share the analytics you do have, is then, that's a great sign. These people, they're just not worth more of my time.
Right. And for the reps, I mean, it really is 5 seconds to create a project, share a content with a buyer, a behavior they're already doing in email. And today, yes, where will tell you if they open the email. Some will tell you if they click on the attachment, but we will actually tell you what pages the buyers are interested in and what they're truly interested in, and help suggest the more relevant content based on how the buyer is behaving with the content.
Now, there's some, so we're seeing this sort of convergence of sales tools. If we have a Venn diagram of overlapping circles, there's certainly areas of overlap. Right. So certainly email trackers, the sales development platforms, and so on. So how are you playing in that space? How do you play with those others? How do you differentiate from those others?
Right. Well, my advice to salespeople is analytics, especially knowing who cares and when they care, is now, it doesn't matter what you're using to get that. Really, if you're not using that, you're really behind the curve. There's so many tools out there, and that's commoditized now. You really have to have some sort of insights around which of your opportunities, your accounts, your leads are really engaged, because those are the ones you're most likely to sell to.
But that's a great question, though. I mean, without digressing too much, is and I've had other guests we've talked about this, is that I think the use of sales technologies, sales automation technologies, are heavily focused, across the entire, we'll just say the U.S. economy, focused heavily into the tech space. You get outside the tech space, and use of these tools is not very prevalent at all.
Right.
So, what do you see as really the key? Because this is, one of my passions is, I want to broaden the use of these tools outside of the early adopters we see in the tech space that, really drives their business and their productivity. How do we get those benefits to everybody else? Right.
Yeah, I think the reality is that a lot of those companies are just, they need leaders, right? They need some companies that are doing this, and they want to hear it from within their sectors. We spoke to a manufacturing company who were not even on Salesforce, right? They were still deliberating if they should use Salesforce or not. And this is a huge billion-dollar company in Germany, and
they didn't have a CRM system?
Well, they had a CRM system, but I won't mention their name. But it was one that they should have moved away from a long time ago. It took them about 2 years to deploy that. But the point is, they're a laggard, right? And they, 3 months later, they're on Salesforce, and then they were calling us to say, hey, this is important. We want to integrate this into Salesforce. And once they did that, we had their competitor reach out to us saying, hey, we just lost a deal because because our competitor was using this buyer portal, and we Googled buyer portal and we found you. And not knowing that, hey, that company was actually using our products, right? And so I think a lot of this behavior is just, they're just not early adopters, and they need a few innovators and in the space for it to change. So I think it's with time.
So, well, what do you see as sort of the challenges in the space you're at? I mean, these are great tools. I'm a huge advocate, for tools that give intelligence and to sales reps to help them do their job, become more productive, more effective. So how do you see this sort of, nothing stays still, right? So how do you see this sort of evolving for the space you're in terms of the helping shape the buyer experience, which I think is so utterly crucial?
Right. I think what's really interesting is how artificial intelligence is going to help us, because selling is hard enough, right? We want everything else that helps the sales rep do a better job and provide a remarkable experience to the buyer to be, to be automated, right? We shouldn't have to update the CRMs, and we shouldn't have to, just do all that manual searching of content. What's the right response here? Am I educated enough about this product? All of those things should be at my fingertips. And I think the more data we have about where the buyer is at, how they're behaving, just puts the salesperson in the right position to respond to and help the buyer make a decision, and I think in the future, the company that utilizes the insights and the analytics that they capture the most in helping the buyer are the companies that are going to win. Right now, I think we're focused more on how exciting the analytics is, but who is using that data in the most intelligent way?
Yeah, and that's a good question. Who is using that in the most intelligent way?
You asking me?
Yeah. I mean, we can have. You're the only one I'm talking to right now. I mean, the audience could send in emails and tell us what they want, but yeah, that's. I think the challenge with sales technologies is adoption, right? And how do you get adopted and embedded in such a way that before the next greatest thing comes along that might possibly supplant you?
Right. Yeah, so I agree with that. I think the challenge most companies have with adoption is because, well, a number of reasons. Sometimes it's UX. Sometimes it's just timing, right? You're too early. I remember when we started considering Slack 2.5 years ago, we couldn't get the guys to use it, right? And now adoption is 100%. I know Slack, and there are many tools like that. And Salesforce struggled with adoption. I think it's a natural curve of, hey, there are early adopters, there are innovators, and I couldn't convince my grandmother to use the iPhone for 8 years, right? It's just, I think we just have to be patient and focused on really understanding the use case and really understanding what the user wants. And that is, I think we obsess too much over adoption, I guess is what I'm saying. I think you cannot have 100% adoption for anything that is truly innovative, and we just have to accept it. And if there is, I speak to a lot of companies who are looking for 90%, 100% adoption across the board, right? And the great ones, of course, have a team that help drive adoption, and we achieve that. We have a company that's using our product that has 98% adoption, and it's amazing. But they focus on that. But it's not what we should focus on. The reality is that if 60, 70% of the sales force is using a great tool, right, and you're seeing a clear ROI, it will transpire over time. So we have to be patient, I guess.
Yeah, and are you able then to track your users' experiences, as you said, so you can say, okay, yeah, sales reps using this get a higher close rate, shorter conversion price buying cycles.
Right.
I mean, are you able to track that type of analytics?
Right, 100% we can. And we've been going for 2.5 years now, so we have that data and we're using that to drive adoption. The reality is that sales reps, believe it or not, they see this data and they're skeptical. If you have someone who's been working in sales for 20, 30, 40 years and he's been doing it his own way his whole life, and he's seeing that somebody else is succeeding and he's still operating at 80, 90%, just enough to stay in the company, the ROI isn't going to convince him.
What does? That's a great question, though. That's a great question. So what does?
Right. Sometimes
because a lot of technologies that come out, they're really geared at, to my mind, they're really geared at sort of the upper crust anyway, the people that are succeeding anyway.
Right.
And to me, one of the real power of sales technologies are, if adopted by the people that are what I call the middle class of sales, that want to aspire to earn more, be more successful, and so on, become sort of B players and become sort of consistent B plus, A minus type players.
Right.
Then, tools like this are really become important.
Right. So here's the challenge that we have as a co-founder of a tech company, that we with fanatical fans that love our product, but we know we have challenges with adoption. Here's the challenge we have. So the challenge is really about understanding the use case enough to simplify the product and have it really clear that if someone who is let's put it this way, slightly slow with a slightly slow uptake on technology accesses it, he's not confused and he can use the product really easily. That's really what it's about. The challenge we have is when we see that something is exciting, it's innovative, and we have a clearly 80 out of 150 of the sales reps that love it and they're using it and they're asking us for more features and more cool stuff. The challenge is, hey, why don't we want to build that, right? And then you continue to build that, and of course they love it. But the problem is you struggle with UI and UX because you're making the product too complicated. So this is the daily challenges that we have: is, hey, how do we simplify it for everybody, or how do we make a really a really cool tool for our early adopters?
Well, it's a great question. I mean, I think that it really has to do sort of with your philosophy of selling,
right?
I mean, to me, keep it simple, right? Even people selling complex products,
right,
overcomplicate things. Even people who are really successful. Actually, I think. Well, let me rephrase that. That wasn't correct. The people in my mind that are really successful in sales learn how to keep it simple.
Right.
They've kicked out the extraneous out of their processes, out of their lives, and they focus on the things that make a difference for the buyer.
Right.
So yeah, if you can keep it simple,
right,
I think you'll be better off.
Right. So I'm not disagreeing with you. I agree with you. I'm just being honest and saying that's the challenge that I have.
Yeah, well, that's what a really premium price product is for, right?
Right. And I mean, this is what we focus on every day is, hey, what are we building? What are we solving for? And it's a constant question, right? It's just that it's really tempting to, to solve more problems, right?
Yeah. Well, the question is, do the problems really become problems are they really problems that will move the needle for you or for the sales rep?
Right.
And I think that's always the challenge, right?
Right.
Because I think you nailed it right on. Is your adoption over time is being greater with the more simpler, direct, compelling value proposition that people quickly understand.
Right, 100%. But then you look at the market and you see that, hey, most products today are complex, right? And the reason they're complex is because they solve lots of problems, and you need salespeople to explain that, and you need to drive adoption with customer success. It's I completely agree with you, but I'm saying, hey, this is the reality: is that you have great companies, you have even LinkedIn, right? That is awesome, but it struggles with features, right? They want to solve more and more problems, right?
Not always clear that's the case, but yeah.
Right, but no, it's if you think of LinkedIn in the beginning, it was much easier to use. Like today, you can do 100 things with LinkedIn, right? It's just, and that makes it harder to use.
All except exporting your contacts.
Is that easy? Are you saying that's easy?
No, you can't do it.
Right. Oh, they've removed that now?
I'm not sure you can do it. But
oh, you can do that. I've done that 6 months ago.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But you don't whatever. We don't go details.
It took me about
you get the point.
6 months to find it, is the point I'm trying to make. Yeah, exactly.
User experience, buyer experience. All right. So we get to the last segment of the show, which is everybody's favorite, standard questions that I pose all my guests. And Gerald, you ready?
Yeah, go on.
You've been waiting. You've been studying for this part of it. So
I have not.
So the first question is a hypothetical scenario. You've just been hired as new VP of sales at a company whose sales have stalled out. They want you to fly over from the UK to the US to help put things right, get them unstuck. So what 2 things could you do your first week on the job that could have the biggest impact?
So actually, I have to give props to one of the greatest sales VPs that I've worked with, Scott White, Rackspace. If you're listening, here's what he did. He came in from the US and he came into the UK, and we'd had a few VPs of sales, right, that had come in and left 6 months in. And Scott came in, quiet demeanor, came across initially like an introvert. And honest to God, he spent about a month not saying a single word, but interviewing every single individual in about maybe 100 people, and spent so much time with every single individual that he, by a month or a month and a half in, he had built so much respect with the team that whatever he said, he would have got us to do. And I think that's more important than whatever strategy or whatever advice that you come in to deliver, is spend time with the human beings and get to know them. And that was extraordinary for me.
Okay, so that's one thing you do. What's the second thing you would do?
So after that, assuming I've learned something, right, and I can deploy it, I think it's for me, it's always about passion for something in sales. It's about energy and it's about passion for something. And going back to our mission as a company and where we're going and why we're going, and making sure that we all remember that, for me, is the most important.
Okay, good enough. So now some rapid fire questions. You can give me 1-word answers. You can elaborate if you wish. The first one is, when you, Gerald, are out selling BuyerDeck,
right,
what's your most powerful sales attribute?
Ooh. I think listening. I really take my time. So I was a poor listener as a salesperson, probably the first 5 years, and it got to a point, and I started to do this. Whenever I wanted to speak, I would put myself on mute and speak. And that forced me to listen and let the buyer sort of speak. And even those awkward silences that salespeople can't handle, and they just force themselves to fill it with words. I would put myself on mute and I would say something, say the things I wanted to say, but it would be awkward and the buyer would speak. They would literally feel that, hey, here's a moment where I need to share why I care or what I'm interested in with them. And that practice has got me to a point where I would like to believe that I spend a lot of time really asking open questions and listening.
Okay. Good answer. Who's your sales role model?
I have a lot. That's an unfair question, Andy.
You get one.
Damn. There's a guy that I worked with. He's I mean, I've read so many books, but Zig probably, but someone close to me, someone I worked with. His name is Saj Kaluji, and I worked with him a while, and I love that kid. He is he's my role model.
Okay. One book every salesperson should read.
Great question. Which one? Any of Zig Ziglar's books.
Okay, that's fair. Last question. What music's on your playlist?
So I'm a huge, I'm one of those guys that like everything, but I'm not going to lie. I'm an R&B guy. I'm an old school R&B guy. I'm ashamed to say that I love, if you would know this, Jagged Edge, the Destiny's Child, it doesn't matter. As long as it's R&B and I can shake my hip, I'm good.
I definitely wouldn't call Destiny's Child and those guys old school. I was thinking, old school R&B, like, the OJs and the Temptations and people like that. But
that's old school, Andy.
That's too old school. Okay, so... All right, you're talking like 80s and 90s old school.
I'm talking 90s, yeah. 90s, 2000s, yeah.
All right.
All right. That's when we used to call it rhythm and blues, right? It wasn't R&Bs then.
Oh, no, I think that was, I'm not sure. I wouldn't even know if they'd called it R&B then. But anyway, okay, well, thanks for being on the show.
Thank you.
So, Gerald, tell people how they can get in contact with you or find out more about BuyerDeck.
Sure. So if you're listening to this show and you care about the buying experience, doing something that makes you that delivers a truly remarkable experience for every buyer that's buying your product, please reach out to us. Go to BuyerDeck/giveaway for I think about a week. We're giving away some licenses. We could give it away if you qualify.
I was going to say, by the time this airs, that's not going to be applicable anymore.
That's so true. Yes, no, it's going to be done. So just go to buyerdeck.com. Email me, gerald@buyerdeck.com, if you care about remarkable buying experiences, and let's chat.
Yeah, or email Gerald and they'll claim one of these coupons, even though it's long past time. So, okay, Gerald, appreciate you being on the show.
Awesome. Thank you. I loved your show. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much. And remember, friends, make it part of your day every day to deliberately learn something new to help you accelerate your success. And one easy way to do that is to make this podcast accelerate to part of your daily routine, whether you listen in the commute, in the gym, or make it part of your morning sales meeting. That way, you won't miss any of my conversations with top business experts like my guest today, Gerald Vanderpuye, who shared his expertise about how to accelerate the growth of your sales. So thanks for joining me. Until next time, this is Andy Paul. Good selling, everyone. Thanks for listening to the show. If you like what you heard and want to make sure you don't miss any upcoming episodes, please subscribe to this podcast on iTunes or Stitcher.com. For more information about today's guest, visit my website at andypaul.com.